All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're taking a look at the back end of a global coffee trade. It's a notoriously fragmented beast, right? It relies on this completely chaotic web of farmers, exporters, importers, roasters, and local cafes. But what happens when you digitize that entire ecosystem? Well, today we are exploring how the Equity Coffee platform is doing exactly that, bringing the entire supply chain into one unified digital space.
Right off the bat, the core mission is crystal clear: moving coffee from origin to market. It really grounds us in the physical reality of moving heavy agricultural products across the planet. The platform prioritizes nearby marketplace lots and route-ready opportunities, meaning it's not just some static digital directory. It is deeply tied to the actual, physical, regional logistics of the coffee trade. So here is our roadmap for today. We've got 5 stages: the origin to market network, sourcing and sample logistics, sensory evaluation and scoring, inventory and roasting economics, and finally, wholesale publishing and invoicing. We are basically going to follow the physical journey of a single coffee bean entirely chronologically.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the origin to market network.
The modern buyer's hub is an absolute game changer for the sourcing experience. Forget about those endless email chains just trying to figure out what a supplier actually has in stock. Here, buyers get curated recommendations instantly. You might see a washed Ethiopia Guji with an impressive 87.5 cup score, or maybe a Kenya AA top scoring 86.0. In one quick glance, you've got immediate visibility into the quality, the price per kilogram in US dollars, and exactly how many kilos are actually available to purchase.
Moving right along to Section 2, Sourcing and Sample Logistics.
Now, finding the perfect bean online is really just step 1. Next, we have to talk about the physical movement of sample beans across the globe, because obviously no roaster is going to buy thousands of dollars of green coffee without tasting it first. So we have this digital 6-step workflow that perfectly mirrors the real-world process. You find the coffee, request a sample, track its physical delivery, cup and evaluate it in your lab, request final pricing, and finally place the order. It completely smooths out the friction of international trade.
And the way a digital request translates into the real world is pretty incredible. You can track requests for tiny 200-gram samples of that washed Kenya AA, while simultaneously coordinating the actual physical courier. You literally see these 200-gram packages bound for specific destinations like Oman or the UAE. It perfectly bridges the gap between a click on a screen and a box getting loaded onto an airplane.
Of course, to keep all these moving parts running smoothly, the finances have to be flawless. An automatically generated logistics invoice handles the sample delivery, say exactly $20 for that 200-gram shipment. By generating this directly within the system, the financial trail is kept just as transparent and organized as the physical shipping route.
Which brings us to Section 3, Sensory Evaluation and Scoring.
Okay, so the sample has traversed the globe and arrived at the roastery. Now it's time for the most sensory and arguably the most subjective part of the whole journey, the tasting. It's fascinating how the platform brings that sensory experience directly online. Roasters use this really colorful, interactive SCA-style flavor wheel to dial in exact flavor descriptors. So if you're evaluating a Colombia El Ruby at an 86 or maybe a Burundi, you're logging specific notes like jasmine, black tea, or orange blossom, right alongside precise sliders for acidity and body.
Defining this formal evaluation process really highlights why digitizing it is so vital. You are taking a completely subjective physical taste test and translating it into certified, shareable data. Those flavor notes and that numerical cup score, they literally dictate the coffee's final market value.
Let's dive into Section 4, Inventory and Roasting Economics.
Once that coffee is approved and purchased in bulk, we enter the physical transformation phase. This is where green coffee becomes brown coffee, and it fundamentally changes the economics of the bean. First, the coffee officially changes hands. The system tracks the exact moment of transfer, like moving 200 kilos of that Colombia Hula El Ruby straight into the roaster equity inventory. It gets marked as reserved, ensuring absolutely nobody else in the network can lay claim to those specific beans.
From there, a beautifully organized inventory ledger lets the roaster manage their newly acquired asset. For this specific lot, they see exactly what's on hand: 50 kilos active, another 200 kilos reserved, making 250 kilos total. It even calculates their total stock value for the lot right on the spot, $1,250.
But here is where the math gets super interesting. When you physically roast green coffee, you're applying intense heat, right? Well, that burns off moisture. We call this roast loss. It literally means your roasted output is physically lighter than your green input. If you put 10 kilos into the roaster, you might only get 8.5 kilos out. And because you now have less physical product to sell, your cost per kilo completely shifts.
To handle that economic shift, a live roast costing dashboard does the math for you. It takes the total green coffee used, factors in that average roast loss percentage, and gives the roaster vital metrics comparing their initial green cost per kilo to their actual roasted cost per kilo. Honestly, it's an indispensable tool for making sure a roastery actually remains profitable.
And finally, Section 5, Wholesale Publishing and Invoicing. So our bean has been sourced, sampled across the world, rigorously scored, purchased, and perfectly roasted. The last hurdle? Getting it to the local coffee houses. This crisp 4-step workflow perfectly summarizes how a roaster turns that finished product into revenue. You roast the batch, attach your evaluation report, publish the wholesale offer, and wait for those B2B buyer inquiries to roll in.
When publishing the offer, the roaster simply selects the specific roasted batch, automatically attaches that flavor report we talked about earlier, and sets the critical parameters. Things like the roast profile, maybe an espresso roast, the price per kilo, and the minimum order quantity. It packages all of that hard work into one polished digital storefront.
Of course, juggling wholesale clients takes some serious operational muscle. A trade operations dashboard acts as the central nervous system here. You can manage the entire life cycle in one place, creating a new deal, sending a contract, issuing the invoice, and organizing the final shipment. It takes the absolute chaos of wholesale management and organizes it into a single, seamless flow.
Ultimately, all of this global coordination leads right here to tracking the invoice aging. This makes sure that when wholesale orders are shipped to cafes, the finances actually add up. It monitors open totals, flags overdue balances, and tracks exactly how many days it's been since an invoice was issued. Basically, it ensures that after the bean's massive journey, the business actually gets paid.
By bridging the heavy physical reality of agricultural logistics with sleek digital management, this explainer shows just how beautifully complex your morning coffee truly is. From a farm in Ethiopia to a sample roaster in the UAE, through sensory labs, complex roast math, and wholesale contracts, next time you take a sip, ask yourself, how many digital handshakes and data points did it actually take to get that exact flavor profile into your cup? And it really leaves you wondering, what other massive global supply chains are quietly running our world in the background? Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.